Okay, so Frank Kaufman started taking things apart at age 4, building his first radio at age 8, and repairing various items at age 12. His formal education is in electronic engineering, but his practical experience includes woodworking, metalworking, construction, and computer technology. His wife is actively involved in quilting, sewing, and embroidering, and has a collection of machinery related to these activities. Frank has been doing the repair, adjustments, and maintenance of these machines for over 40 years, as well as the machines belonging to her friends. He has been an active member of the Repair Café Toronto Fixers for years, working with a great variety of items, electronics, electrical, or mechanical, and fixing things from watches to appliances. Welcome and thank you for agreeing to do a part 3 of this sewing machine workshop. Thank you. Take it away.
Welcome, everybody. Glad to have you here. This is the 3rd session of these events that we put together, because going through the 1st and the 2nd, the questions made it very obvious that we had to get into a little more detail of some of the items. So I am not going to go back and cover the basics that we already covered in the first 2 sessions. However, at least a basic knowledge of that is going to be very helpful. With all that, if any one of you has not seen the previous sessions or doesn't fully remember all the details, please feel free to ask anytime, any question, and I'll be glad to go back and cover those items. What we are trying to do today is, instead of a formal presentation with slideshows and all that, we are going to actually look at a couple of machines that exhibit the typical problems that people usually get into. When you look at your sewing machine, and I assume that these days everybody has a motorized machine and very few of them are still out there with the foot pedal. First thing you do is turn on the machine. Light comes on, you press the pedal, the motor moves, and the needle starts moving up and down. Once that happens, you know your machine, basically, it's working. If it doesn't make those movements, it has to be repaired. It's not something that we are going to get into today. We are going to assume that you turn your machine on and you are having a problem doing the very basic straight single stitch. It's not forming correctly, it's breaking the thread, it's breaking the needle, it's puckering up the material, it has a problem looping, making a big mess on the bottom of the textile. These are the things that we are going to work on. I have mentioned before that there are many, many different style, different kind of sewing machines, some of them with few features, some of them with a lot of very sophisticated features, some of them manual adjustment, some of them electronic with a little computer in it. However, the very basic principle of how the sewing machine works is exactly the same, regardless where that machine comes from. Let me just go back to one of those video units and show you what I'm talking about. I assume you can see the moving screen. Please acknowledge, can you see the moving screen okay? Okay, very good. So if you look at it, the yellow thread comes through the needle goes down, puts it through the material, comes up, pulls it back up. Underneath, there is the green thread. The green thread is on the bobbin. We refer to it as the bobbin thread, while the yellow we call the upper thread. The needle comes down. It forms a loop with the thread. The hook, which is the rotating 3/4 gray item that you see on the bottom, grabs that loop and puts it around the bobbin. So the bobbin itself with the thread on it is put through that loop. When the yellow thread goes up, it cannot pull out of the material because the green thread, the bobbin thread, is holding it. What is critical for good stitching is, as you can see it here, on a good stitch, the bottom thread goes up halfway into the material and it comes back down. The upper thread goes down, pulls up and stays halfway into the material. So the connection between the two threads is buried in the middle of the material. That is the functional, properly working machine and the properly adjusted thread. This is what you want to achieve when you are using your machine. 9 times out of 10, when we get a machine for repair, for adjustments, the problem is that it's breaking the thread, it's making a mess under it. It doesn't have this nice and neat, straightforward looping. Now, let's talk about how we get to this. Okay, I will switch over and show you a machine that I have here. And maybe we can get an introduction of how this machine came about and how it ended up here. Please take it from here.
Okay, I'm going to introduce you to Nidhi. This is going to be like a simulation of what a repair cafe face-to-face is like, where somebody brings the machine to the repair cafe event and explains to the fixer, like Frank, what possibly a bit of a history as to where they might got it from and what is wrong with it. So I'm going to introduce Nidhi. Nidhi, can you unmute yourself?
Yes, hi there.
Hi, Nidhi.
Hi, everyone.
And you might know Nidhi from the clothing repair. She's the one that was one of the she does a lot of clothing and sewing. And so Nidhi, you've just entered to the Repair Cafe. Welcome.
Thank you. This machine, the brand is white, and I got it in, I think, 2010 or 2011 from Woburn Collegiate Institute when I was studying there. And they were throwing out those old machines, so I got it as a donation. And it's been about 10 years. I'm using it to make stuff, but sometimes the thread breaks when I'm sewing it, or needle breaks, and the thread bunch ups on the bottom side of the fabric or even inside the bobbin. Yeah, so I'm not sure what to do. And even the speed goes slow sometimes. It won't go that fast.
Thank you so much, Nidhi. So you can mute yourself, and Frank, take it away.
All right, so we have this machine. And let me just move around here to the other side. I can see what I am doing. Okay. There are a couple of issues with this machine. As soon as I got it, I put it up here, and the first thing I notice that this cover plate is completely loose. It is missing the spring that's supposed to hold it. I would never ever use a machine where the cover plate is not solidly attached. It should just slide forward and stay in this position and put it back. It is very dangerous to use a machine that doesn't have the plate or doesn't have it in place, because the material can go down inside here, get caught, and there are moving parts inside right there. Let me grab a flashlight so I can show you better. One second.
So I think for anybody who's new here or who doesn't know, many of our students are from Woburn Collegiate, where Nidhi is an alumni and had gotten this machine. It must probably been one of your sewing classes.
So now you can see if I move the machine, there is a rotating part here on the bottom. So the material can get caught in there, bunch up, and break all kinds of things. I have no way of telling if that happened or not. If it did, there is a possibility that some items down there are actually bent from the force and things are not working properly. The needle goes up and down. That function is working fine. The foot moves up and down, and that function seems to be working okay. I took the bobbin in the bobbin casing out of the machine. It's in my hand here. One of the things I noticed immediately that if I take this bobbin with the bobbin thread, you see what I have here? I have a very solid unit. To pull this thread takes a considerable effort, which means the bobbin tension is way, way, way too high, which can be a major, major issue. Bobbin tension, you know what, let's talk about bobbin thread for a moment. You have to wind your bobbin in any one of the machines to be able to use it. All the machines have some sort of bobbin winding facility. How you thread the bobbin thread when you are winding the bobbin is very important. The bobbin goes up in its appropriate place. Let me see if I can come a little closer. I have it now in place. The thread, to be able to do it, has to come a certain way. In this particular machine, and of course, for each machine, it's a different way how you do that. But for this machine, it comes through the hook here in the guide, then goes around the tensioner for the bobbin. So it has to go right around it to create appropriate tension. And then it goes onto the bobbin. And as the machine spins, it will wind it. It's very important that the bobbins are wound evenly. When you look at the bobbin, you can see it. This one is fairly evenly wound. Not perfect, but it's not bad. I have another one here. This one has perfectly fine bobbin. It's even and it's threaded properly. Let me just put this back in place. Okay. So the bobbin is wound and it goes into the bobbin case. Couple of things. Bobbins look the same. They are either the same or look very, very similar. They are not identical. There are different bobbins, there are little different, small, different shapes, different items between bobbins. They are not interchangeable. You must use the correct bobbin, otherwise you are going into the kind of problems that we are talking about. This machine here is using these metal bobbins. It's called a class 15, and it fits into the bobbin holder. Very important, when the thread is inside bobbin case, when you pull on it, it moves either counterclockwise or clockwise, depending on how you put the bobbin into the case. There are two ways of doing it, only one right way. Okay? If you have the manual, it will show you. This particular machine, it has to go clockwise. So I have to put the bobbin in like this. So when I pull it, it moves in the clockwise direction. Once you put the bobbin into the bobbin holder, on the side there is a notch. The thread goes through the notch, goes under a spring, and when it's in, as you pull on it, it is going to turn in the right direction. Now, this is what we are talking about. When you are pulling on it, the tension has to be right. This bobbin, and I didn't touch the tension adjustment on it, it came like this, and I can do a lot of things, and it's going to hold like that. This tension is way, way, way too high. If you look at the bobbin holder, and I should adjust this so you can see what I am talking about. When you look at the bobbin holder, there is this spring, and there is a small screw on the side. Every one of the bobbin holders has that screw adjustment. This one has a screw right here, and I can take a screwdriver of appropriate size and make an adjustment to it. In this particular case, I am going to turn the screw counterclockwise because I want to loosen it. Whenever you do this, first of all, do it in quarter turn increments. Don't make it 2, 3, 4 full turns, because what will happen is the screw will fall out, and these screws are tiny. The chance that you find it back is remote. And once that's gone, you have to buy a new bobbin case. You cannot buy just a screw for it. So be careful when you do that. By the way, this is the regular old-style metal bobbin case. The newer machines have a plastic case like this. However, if you look at the side, they also have a small screw, just as like the other one, that allows you to adjust it. Many of these bobbin holders come from the factory pre-adjusted. Once it's pre-adjusted, some of them have it glued. There is a drop of glue on top of it. You cannot adjust it unless you dig that glue out, which you can do with a screwdriver or a tip of a scissor or a tweezer. Once you have that, you can adjust it. The adjustment is necessary because, number one, the thickness of the thread that you use will make an effect on the tension. Obviously, if the spring tension is so and the thicker thread is put into it, it will create more tensions. Many users have more than one bobbin case, and they use a different bobbin case for different strengths, different thickness thread. Once the bobbin is adjusted properly, you will not have to touch it for years and years. On this one, let's see what we can do as far as adjusting it. And if I didn't drop it, it would be much easier. But give me a second, we put it back here. Yeah. Better undo it and reset it. You always have to play with these things. So I just wind this thread back onto it as much as possible, reasonable. Have a couple of inches out. put it in so it turns clockwise into the notch under the spring in its place. I pull on it, it's still very, very stiff. I'm going to loosen it. Let me try now. Much looser, maybe a little more. Now, if I lift it, as you can see, the bobbin is turning and there is no tension on it. So now I have to turn it back and give it a little more. Let's see what we have now. The right tension the right tension is when you lift the bobbin, and I'm trying to do this in an awkward position so you can see it on the camera. That's why I'm dropping it all the time. Let's do it again. You put it in, it goes clockwise into the notch under the spring. It is in place. And now, if I shake it, you can see it goes down. But if I lift it up, it stays in place. This is now the right tension for a bobbin. This can go back in. Now, I won't be able to show you on this machine that it works properly, but it is a good way of showing the bobbin tension because the upper thread mechanism in this machine is having a major problem. Let me show you what I am talking about. You thread the machine, it goes through the upper guide, goes into the tension assembly under, right? Here into the upper looper, and then it goes back down to the needle, and we thread it through. When I put it through the tension assembly here, the upper thread tension is adjusted by turning this from 0 all the way to 9 in this case. You can see that the numbers 4, 5, and 6 are actually in red. The other numbers are in white. Actually, 4, 5, and 6 are in red. Because 5 is the middle of the range. Usually, we adjust the machine in such a way that when the bobbin tension in the bobbin is correct, setting the upper tension guide in the middle, which is number 5, it is going to create the appropriate tension. And by going down to 0, we can loosen it. Going up to 9, we can tighten it. So we can adjust the tension as we need it using that. Unfortunately, on this machine, this tension assembly does not work. It doesn't matter where I set it. It just lets the thread come through loose. Let me explain how the tension assembly works. It's fairly simple. There are 2 plates. Give me 1 second. I did that once before, but let me show you. There are 2 dish-shaped metal discs inside, and they are held together on a threaded bolt with a spring pushing the two together. So they look very much like these two plates, like that. And as they are like put together, the thread itself comes through in between and gets caught between the two discs. Depending on the adjustment, the spring puts more or less tension on these discs and allows the thread to come through with more or less tension. So in this particular machine, for whatever reason, the two discs are apart and they will not put any tension on the thread. The only way to fix that is taking the machine apart, seeing what the problem is. It may be missing a part, it may be jammed up, the spring may have lost its springiness, possibly it can be fixed, possibly a new assembly has to be put into it, which has to be ordered and installed. So we are not going to go any further as far as repairing this machine with the tension assembly, because first of all, it will take an hour or so to take it apart and get to it. And the other, that I don't have a replacement part anyway to fix it right now here. However, this is a very good machine to look at and see what a machine should not have. And this machine has been around, it's probably 30 or 40 years old, and I don't think it has been maintained. When you look at this, and I'm trying to get to a place where you can see this well, allow me to adjust this camera so we get the right view. What I want to show you is this dark, you see the bottom part here is shiny and clean. Above it is all yellow, and there is this black ring. I can take my tweezer and go and get this accumulated, what I refer to as gunk, that I just got out of there. I think you can see it. When I see something like this accumulating on a machine like that, that indicates that the machine has not been maintained, it has not been cleaned. And if at a very obvious place like that, where you should be able to easily get to and clean it and remove all this dirt and oil the machine, is not done, can you imagine what it looks like on the inside, where you cannot even get to, and you are not expected to do that? So this machine would need a complete disassembly and cleaning, all the joints that are, all the moving joints. Now let me put this machine on its side so I can show you what I'm talking about. All these parts that you see moving, they all need to be cleaned, lubricated, made sure everything is working properly. Now, the one thing that people say to me, oh, I'm not a mechanic, I don't know what to do there, I don't want to take the machine apart. You don't need to take the machine apart. But there is one portion that is very important, and you should be able to take it apart and work on it. And that is the bobbin assembly and the hook assembly. And let me show you how that is done. This is a very nice machine to do that. This is the bobbin housing. And as you know, the bobbin fits in there, goes into its place, and sits in the right location. like that. And then as the machine moves, things move around the bobbin. You take the bobbin housing, the bobbin holder out, and there is the rotating part which creates the stitch. And it's extremely important that this part is clean and smooth. And the only way to do that is by taking it apart, taking it out. All of the machines have an easy way to remove that assembly. In this particular machine, there are these two black levers. And you turn one in one direction, the other one in the other direction. And now this whole assembly can be taken out. There are pieces that we took out, and we'll talk about that in a second. And there is the part in the machine itself. And I try to hold both the camera and the flashlight so you can see what I'm talking about. And as I am moving the wheel, you can see the rotating part. This, in this case, moves back and forth. What is extremely important, that on the inside, everything is squeaky clean. In this machine, there is a lot of dirt and a lot of accumulated gunk on the inside that one would have to remove. I usually use a Q-tip with alcohol, and with that, you can wipe it out. The same way, the pieces that we took out. Let me see. Can you see the brownish?
It's a bit blurry, Frank. You might have to kind of lift it up higher, just a bit. Yeah, and then yeah, there's a bit of a greasy kind of thing. Is that?
Yeah, you see this brownish material. That will stop the thread moving smoothly across. So you take either a piece of material or piece of cloth. I take a Q-tip in this case because I have it here. And put some alcohol on the Q-tip. And with that, I will just start cleaning up. Sometimes you have to soak it, like on this one, it's been around so long that it would take a bit of soaking to get all this gunk off it. But you must do that, otherwise the thread doesn't have a chance to smoothly move around. It gets caught. It's not a smooth transition. You can now see that small part that I already cleaned up. That one is fine. It has to be done all the way, the same way, on the inside, where the thread is supposed to move through.
Frank, what kind of alcohol are you using?
Alcohol, just the isopropyl rubbing alcohol.
Thank you.
Anything from a drugstore or a Canadian Tire. As far as the alcohol is not critical. What is critical, that this part must be scrupulously clean for the machine to work properly. So on this one, one would have to soak it and make sure that it's all cleaned up. Exactly the same way with this bobbin assembly. This is the assembly that when the bobbin casing goes in, like this, the thread just moves around it and slips across. If there is any burr, any dirt, anything on it, it is going to create a problem. Right now I see here some of the accumulated dirt. So once again, one would take this and just soak it for a couple of hours and clean it up. This is something you can do on your own, and you must do on your own to keep the machine in good order. also a drop of oil needs to go in where this turning part are inside the machine. Not a lot, because you don't want your thread to get oily, but it just needs one drop to make sure that everything is moving smoothly. So that's about all that I can do on this machine. And it, I think, gave you a fairly good idea. Once it's cleaned and lubricated, you put the parts back, not much to it. You drop it in place. Put the other assembly in, back in its place, and it's going to work and do okay, up in here. You have to trust me, it does go back into its place. Right. Goes back in place, and once it's in place, you move the lever back to hold it back in place. Anyway, I will put this machine away, and I will grab another one that was brought in here, which I didn't even look at yet, but it looks like a much newer machine. So let me grab it and we'll take a look at what the story is on that.
If anyone has any tension problems or those things that that Frank has just shown and wants to indicate that in the chat, please do so in terms of, hopefully he's answered some of that question. I think Frank in all his workshop has always talked about maintenance is key to any of the problems that people face. And that's usually the reason why a lot of these things occur. So yep, this is a newer one. And this one here is now brought in by, and again, like a repair cafe, not everything is going to be fixable. And in this case with Needy's sewing machine, there is going to be some maintenance that Frank can do. But after that, I take it, Frank, what would you tell Needy at the end of that repair cafe kind of visit?
I would have to, let's say, I take it apart or look at the part, and if it needs a new part, then I would say, this is what it needs. We don't have, because we can't have parts for everything. If you can order that part in, I'll be glad to install it. Or if you want, I can get it and will tell you what it costs for the part. Because at the Repair Cafe, we don't charge anything for the work, it's a volunteer. Right? And then when the part arrives, we put it together and make it work.
And is it fixable still, her machine?
I would have to go a little further into it to see how far it is worn. I cannot tell because I didn't open it up, didn't look at it yet. I know that the tension assembly is definitely defective.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. There is one more item. As a matter of fact, you are asking this. Let me show you that. One second. It reminded me because it's a very good indication of this machine. If you look at it, right here, there is a lever. It's an adjustment lever, and it shows right on it an arrow, and it says in one position, it is doing this, and in another position, it's doing that. We are not going to go into the detail what it is. It lowers the foot, but you should be able to just push on this lever and move to the other position. There is no way I can move this. It is 100% stock. So that indicates that things that are supposed to be moving in this machine are not able to move. Because if one thing is stuck like that, there's always a chance there are some others also. So we'll have to take a look at it. When something is stuck like this and we know where the issue is, what we usually do is we spray it with WD-40. And okay, let's talk about that for a second. We spray it with WD-40. WD-40 is a wonderful, wonderful penetrant. It is not a lubricant. There is a bit of oil in it, but it will penetrate, it will dissolve years of gunk that was collected. And if you spray it again, it will wash it out. But once it's done, it needs to be cleaned up, dried out, and then with the proper oil, lubricated. We've been talking about this also, and it's a very important point. You must use nothing but sewing machine oil, specifically created for the sewing machine. You cannot use motor oil for the car. You cannot use the 3-in-1 oil. You cannot use vegetable oil from the kitchen. It is tempting. It is not going to yell at you when you are doing it, but in the long run, it is going to create a problem. So don't. A little bottle of sewing machine oil like this is like $4. And the machine requires so little. It's just 6 or 8 drops every 2 or 3 months. A bottle like this could easily last 10 years. So invest a few dollars and get the right thing. You appreciate it. I'm not selling oil. I'm just telling you, please use the right thing because it will make your life easier.
We didn't think you were a snake oil salesman, Frank. But I take it if you see things like they're stuck there, because these are all mechanical and they're not. They are. You shouldn't try to force something. You should try to. I take it. It's best to try to just try to figure out how to unstuck it without forcing the pieces.
Forcing usually leads to breaking.
Yes.
Okay, not a good idea. If it doesn't move where it should, there is a reason. So you have to figure out what that reason is and then resolve that issue. Okay, let me put this machine away and let's look at the other one. Okay, here we have a Singer fashion-made machine. This is probably a better view of the machine. This is a much newer machine. The big difference between the one that we looked at previously is that machine is mostly metal. This one is plastic, plastic, plastic. Okay? Can you tell me why this machine is here?
Yep, Nita?
Yeah, it has breaking thread frequently and breaking needles sometimes. And this machine was brought a year ago and it hasn't been worked ever since she bought it. So yeah, stitching's not proper.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's take a look at it. And the first thing we usually look at, I'm just looking at what came with it. Okay, we have bobbins, we have thread, we have some feet. Okay, so if it's breaking needles, there are only two reasons for needles to break. One, there is a mechanical issue inside the machine. And what that means is when the needle comes down, there is a piece of metal or some of the mechanism that shouldn't be in that place, and it hits it and breaks. Easy enough to tell, because when I look at it, and I will show you how, you can see if you have that problem or not. If the needle moves up and down correctly with no problem, then the issue 9 times out of 10, thread punching up underneath creates a big gob, and then the needle cannot go through it. It just goes on the side and breaks. It goes back to practically the same issues that we are discussing earlier on the other machine. So let's take a look at the tensions, because that is going to give us all the information. Now, all we have to do is figure out how to take it apart. Okay, there is a door here that you can open. And behind the open door, lo and behold, exactly the same style as the other machine had, even though this is about 30 or 40 years younger than the other one, which tells you technology, as far as the sewing machines, has not changed a hell of a lot in the last 125 years. So let's see. The foot is up, the foot is down, working fine. If I turn the handle, the needle moves up and down. I don't hear anything in the way, don't see anything in the way. So let's take a look at the bobbin. Here's the bobbin holder, very much like the other machine. First thing I look at is how it is in the bobbin. Pull, 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 pull. Aha! Way, way, way too high tension. Let's loosen the screw by a quarter turn, only a quarter turn. By the way, I am using this little screwdriver. There are many others. One of my favorite sets is this. It's a screwdriver set. It has all the different sizes, different shapes. Very handy to have. It's like $15 or $16. You can get it Canadian Tire, Bigger Lumber, not Bigger Lumber, what's it called now, Home Depot, and places like that. So I got this. Let's try again. You see how that quarter turn adjustment made all the difference in the tension. So I am going to wind it back. And that may have been the only issue with this machine. But let's take a look. Let me put the bobbin. Oh. Since we are at it, I will open it up. I will take this assembly out. You see where it moves? Take a drop of oil. Because we are in the maintenance cycle anyway, might as well do it. So, 1 drop of oil in the center. Away it goes. Move the handle around, that will evenly distribute it. And another drop here on the side. Now it's going to do. I just took the foot off. Put the oil aside. Let's check. This part's nice and clean, no problem, no issue. This one could use a bit of cleaning, alcohol. This is the part where the section moves around. So I put again a very small drop of oil right at the rim. Just a small drop, and that's going to be distributed evenly when the machine turns. So let's put things back in place. As you can see, this part is clean. The machine, the needle is coming down, is not hitting anything. So that portion of the operation is done. Now, let me put the bobbin in place. It's done. And this section is taken care of. One of the things you need to do now is check the upper section. To be able to see what I want to show you, let me take this rear cover off.
And I put it in the chat, Frank, about the manual's lib link.
Yeah, having manual
who does not have a manual
is very handy. As a matter of fact, in preparation for this session, I have downloaded the manual for this particular machine. And just give me 1 second.
I guess Frank went to get the, I'm going to pause the recording.
For this machine that I just downloaded today. Okay, here. This is the machine we're working on. And if you go into the instruction manual, it shows a lot of the important things that you need to pay attention to. So I was talking about winding the bobbin, inserting. He's talking about the bobbin, obviously. The accessories that come with the machine. We'll do this in a moment. But here it is showing how to wind the bobbin. And how to put the bobbin in place, how to thread the bobbin. And once it's placed in the bobbin case, latch it in. I just did that. And the next item now is threading the machine. Which I can do from here. Let me go back to the, just want to show you that a complete manual you can download from the internet for free for most of the machines. If you cannot find one for the exact machine that you have, you can likely find one to a very similar machine. What am I doing? Okay, we are back. So, I wanted to take this cover off for a couple of reasons. One, because if I do that, you can see the issues that there may be, though I don't expect any major issues with a fairly new machine like this. You look at it, here is the tension assembly, very similar to the other machine that we had. And as far as lubrication, you look at the machine itself, and all you have to do is look at where is a moving part. If there is a moving part like that, and it's metal, a small drop of oil is going to help to keep it lubricated. This pin is moving up and down. It's a shaft. A drop of oil on top will go down, and it will lubricate the whole assembly. If you see plastic parts, do not put oil on plastic parts. So, lubricating the metal, that's the important part. So let's see what we have on this machine. We have to thread it. And the bobbin already has thread, so I don't need to worry about that. Okay. I am putting the thread through the tension assembly, come around, up, into the hook, then we come down. Oh, put this foot up. Oh, no. Okay, this is missing a small part. Let me take this assembly off for a second. This is what's holding the needle. Okay. Put the needle there. All the way up.
Carol has a question. She has a very old Bernina, 1008. And she was looking for the service manual for it. And she has looked into that manual site and hasn't found any, but there is a service manual for a Bernina 1030 instead of a 1008. Is there, in terms of she's trying to get instructions on taking the outer covers off so that she can get to the parts inside, what would you suggest, Frank?
First of all, I am not familiar with the numbers, but if they look similar, there is a very good likelihood that it is going to work. The other manual.
Thank you. Have you ever gotten in touch with actually the Frank, with some of the like Singer or any of the companies themselves in any of this?
Say it again.
Have you ever gotten in touch with Singer or any of the companies, sewing companies? And with
yes. Yes, I did. This is missing a little hook that's supposed to be here to hold the thread. All right, now comes the next. Thread the needle.
You might have to tilt the camera a bit. We can't see what you're doing there, Frank.
I'm trying to thread the needle.
Oh, okay. That's okay.
You know, in my younger days, I could do this no problem. Now it takes me a while to get things in the right place. Okay.
As you can see, we have our youth volunteers there on, especially Bhavya, who is very active. So if you are looking for your manual and you can't find it, just put your make and model in the chat and he'll go looking for it, and any of the other youth as well. So
find it.
it's a good time to use them.
You know what? I just realized this machine has an automatic needle threader, so I didn't need to futz with it like I just did. Anyway, I have the needle is threaded and I have the bobbin in the right place. So I need to put a foot on the machine. Okay, it's in place now. So now all I have to do is hold the thread. Let's pull the bobbin thread up. Okay, it got the bobbin thread up. Can you see it?
Yep.
So that part is working fine. My top thread is black, the bottom thread is white. So I got that. And now what I'm going to do is I will just put this to the center and see. So now I have the bobbin tension adjusted. Let me go and grab a piece of material, which I should have had here already.
Anyone ever, I'm going to pause.
So I got a piece of material and I am going to just go take a few stitches and we'll see what the result is. That's all we need. I don't have it plugged in, but it works exactly the same way. So I got that. Here's the foot. Pull it out. I have a pair of scissors. And cut it. Let's take a look at the result. And I have a perfectly good stitch set. And if you can see it, it's hard to see the white on the bottom and the black on the top, exactly as it should be. So just by adjusting the bobbin tension on the bottom, it brought the machine into its proper stitch configuration. So from here, this should be working just fine without any bunching on the bottom or creating a problem with the needle.
Thank you so much. Wow. So that's fixed.
That's it. As far as this is concerned, I will do a bit of lubrication on it because it's already here on the bench. But that's all it needed was the bobbin tension adjustment, which is definitely too high.
And at this point, this is where we ring a bell and have a sign that says fixed and take a photo of the person holding their machine with thanks.
Yeah, that's how we do it in the Repair Cafe. So anybody has any questions, throw it open. I have some time.